All right, so get that. We're diving into Death Note, Volume 1. And let me tell you, this thing is wild. We're talking about a notebook that can end a life just like that.
It's like straight out of a nightmare, right? But it gets even crazier when you consider the rules Oba came up with.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't some random scribbling that equals death. You need the person's name. Got to picture their face in your mind.
And if you just write the name, poof, heart attack, it's brutal. But then there's the whole manipulation thing. Like, you can basically orchestrate someone's final moments.
Okay, that's messed up. You could make someone confess to a crime, then bam, gone. It's like playing puppet master with a person's life right before the final act.
And that's where things get really interesting, because it forces you to think, what would you do with that kind of power? And believe me, Owa doesn't shy away from exploring that question. He throws you right into the deep end with Light Yagami.
Our resident genius high school student. Except this ain't no coming-of-age story. It's more like a coming-of-God complex story, am I right?
Yeah, no kidding. Light finds this death note, and he's skeptical at first. Who wouldn't be? But then that busjacker incident happens.
Talk about a reality check.
And suddenly Light's world is flipped. He's got this power over life and death. And the scary part is he doesn't shy away from it.
Dude goes from zero to full-blown cure real quick.
Well, he starts by targeting criminals, justifying it as a way to cleanse the world, create a new world free of evil. But you can see how easily that kind of thinking can twist someone.
Yeah, 1 minute it's, I'm ridding the world of evil. The next minute it's, I am the world's new god. It's chilling. But honestly, who knows how any of us would react in that situation?
Right. It's the ultimate ethical dilemma. And while Light is busy playing judge, jury, and executioner, the rest of the world is freaking out.
Can you imagine turning on the news and hearing about criminals just dropping dead left and right? Talk about a global panic attack.
And the authorities?
They're clueless. Enter ICPO.
The International Criminal Police Organization. They're used to dealing with organized crime, terrorism. But this is something else entirely.
And the fact that Kira specifically targeted American felons more than any other nationality.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about throwing fuel on the fire. Yeah. The FBI must have been losing their minds.
It becomes a huge international incident, and it raises a lot of uncomfortable questions about justice. Is Kira a force for good, a necessary evil, or just a straight-up murderer?
Big questions, man.
Yeah.
And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, Oba drops this bombshell on us. L.
The world's greatest detective, shrouded in secrecy, brilliant, and more than a little eccentric.
The guy practically lives on sugar and caffeine. But man, can he think, deducing that Kira is likely a student in the Kanto region just by the timing and location of the deaths?
It's like he's got this sixth sense for patterns, and he's not afraid to use unorthodox methods to catch Kira.
Which is exactly what you want in a detective when you're dealing with something as insane as the Death Note.
It sets up this incredible cat-and-mouse game between Light and L. And let me tell you, the tension is off the charts.
Especially with Ryuk lurking in the shadows. Can't forget about him.
Right. The Shinigami, who started this whole mess, he's just watching everything unfold, probably munching on apples and finding it all endlessly entertaining.
Dude is like the embodiment of chaos.
Yeah.
You know, he's got something up his sleeve, but you have no idea what it is.
Exactly. It makes you realize no one is truly in control in Death Note. Not even Light with all his power.
Back again with Death Note Volume 1. And man, the story just keeps getting wilder.
Okubo really knows how to turn up the heat, doesn't he? The tension just keeps building and building with every page.
It's like he's got this way of getting under your skin, making you question everything. You start to see the world through Light's eyes for a minute, and then bam.
Yeah.
You're slammed back into reality with how twisted his logic is becoming.
And yet, you can't help but be fascinated by him. He's so sure of himself, so convinced that he's doing the right thing, even when he's eliminating anyone who gets in his way.
He's like a total contradiction, right?
Yeah.
This brilliant kid wants to rid the world of evil, but he's got this darkness growing inside him, and it's messing with him.
Yeah.
You can see it in those panels where he's alone.
Absolutely. He even questions his own sanity at one point. Like, he's starting to realize the weight of what he's doing.
He's got all this power, but it's controlling him just as much as he's controlling it.
That's the thing about power, though, isn't it? It can be intoxicating, and it can corrupt even the best of intentions.
Totally. But then you've got L, who's this whole other kind of fascinating.
This guy, right. He's like the anti-Light. He's got his own brand of justice, but he's not afraid to get his hands dirty.
He is willing to bend the rules to catch Kira, even if it means playing mind games with the entire task force.
He knows he's dealing with someone extraordinary, someone who can kill with just a thought. So he has to be just as cunning, just as ruthless.
And when Light and L finally meet face to face, Man, chills.
Talk about a clash of titans. You can practically feel the electricity in the air.
It's like watching two master chess players going head-to-head. Every word, every look is a calculated move.
And Obata's art during those scenes, just phenomenal.
The way he captures their expressions, the intensity in their eyes. It's like you can see the wheels turning in their heads.
And of course, you've got Ryuk lurking in the background.
Always with that creepy grin. Like he knows something we don't.
Don't forget, Ryuk's got skin in the game, too. He gave Light the death note for a reason.
Right. He's not just some passive observer. He's an instigator. Which makes you wonder, what's his endgame? What does he get out of all this chaos?
It's like we're watching a play unfold, but we don't know who the playwright is or what the final act will bring.
And we're back with the final part of our Death Note, Volume 1, Deep Dive. And man, this thing just keeps you on the edge of your seat, doesn't it?
It's like, Aoba took all the best elements of a thriller, the suspense, the mind games, the moral ambiguity, and cranked them all up to 11.
Yeah, he really knows how to mess with your head.
Oh.
Like you think you're starting to understand Light,
Yeah.
maybe even sympathize with him a little.
And then he does something that just makes your jaw drop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like when Light uses the Death Note to save that girl from getting attacked, it's heroic.
Right. But it also shows just how far gone he is. He's so sure of his own righteousness that he's become judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one. And he doesn't even see the problem with that.
Yeah, it's both fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Oh.
And Obata's art during those moments, man. It's like you can see the darkness creeping in around the edges of Light.
The way he uses shadows and those intense close-ups on Light's eyes, it's chilling.
It's like he's not just losing his soul. He's being consumed by the Death Note itself. And then there's L, who's a whole other kind of enigma.
This guy is like a force of nature. He's brilliant, he's relentless, and he will not rest until Kira is brought to justice.
Even if it means putting himself in danger.
Exactly. He's not afraid to cross lines to get what he wants, which makes him both admirable and a little bit terrifying.
No kidding. It's like they're two sides of the same coin. Light and L, both brilliant, both obsessed with justice, but with completely different methods. And the crazy part is, you're never quite sure who to root for.
That's the beauty of Death Note. It keeps you guessing until the very end.
For sure. And let's not forget the wild card in all of this, Ryuk.
Ah, yes, the Shinigami who started it all. He's just watching this whole thing play out like it's some kind of twisted game.
Munching on his apples, waiting to see who'll crack first. Light L. Maybe even himself. Makes you wonder what's going through his head.
We may never know. But that's part of what makes Ryuk such a compelling character. He's this constant reminder that there are forces at play here that are beyond our understanding.
Totally. It's like that question you posed earlier. If the Death Note existed in the real world, would it be a gift or a curse?
It's impossible to say for sure, but one thing's for certain. It would change everything.
No doubt. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Death Note Volume 1.
A wild ride from start to finish.
For sure. And this is just the beginning. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the rest of this series.
You won't regret it.
Until next time, keep those pages turning.